Pokemon Champions has done a few things to mix up the competitive landscape, from adjusting Pokemon's learn sets to introducing new Mega Evolutions, but the most consequential change that they've done is the exclusion of many top-tier Pokemon, such as Chi-Yu, Urshifu, Mega Metagross, and many more. The exclusion of these Pokemon allows for lower tiers to find more niche use cases and see actual competitive success and even relevance, at least for the most part. Despite the overall power level of this game being much lower than most competitive Pokemon formats, there's still a few Pokemon that fall behind the rest and end up as liabilities to a team more than anything. So today, what I want to do is identify the weakest Pokemon in Pokemon Champions. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be excluding any Pokemon that gets a Mega Evolution, as by technicality, they do see some level of competitive success. I know that Mega Beedrill is a completely different beast than a regular Beedrill, but at the end of the day, it's still a Beedrill. Yep, we're just sticking to Pokemon where there's basically no route to success for them. Let's just get right into it. If you guys enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, become a YouTube channel member, hype the video, all of that. And hey, you definitely want to subscribe because at 300,000 subscribers, I'll be ranking every bench in Lumio City. Let's just begin. Okay, so for the sake of having an interesting video and not just jumping right in with the absolute worst Pokemon in the game, I'm gonna make this a top 5. We'll build up the suspense a little bit, but if you open up your Pokedex and just take a look at the Pokemon available in Pokemon Champions, I think you'll be able to figure out what the worst Pokemon is pretty easily. That being said, Pokemon Champions has done a shockingly good job at making it so practically every Pokemon is at least a little bit usable. Even our number 5 pick has seen some decent tournament results, which is why it isn't even lower on the list. At number 5, we have Watchog, a Pokemon that may have one good tournament result underneath its belt, with it managing to finish at 241st place in a 6,100 person online tournament known as the Grand Champions Festival. This finish seems to be done sort of in spite of the fact that Watchog was on the team, rather than due to Watchog itself being a powerful and important team member. It ran the set of the Chople Berry with the ability Analytic, and the moveset of Crunch, Hypnosis, Low Kick, and Ice Punch. Analytic boosts the power of moves by 30% if the user moves second, basically meaning that Watchog had access to a free Life Orb on Low Kick to one-shot opposing Kingambit, as that is a ×4 effective move, and a Life Orb on Ice Punch to sometimes one-shot Garchomp with a ×4 effective move. If I recall correctly, it was a roll in your favor, but it wasn't guaranteed, especially if they were bulky. Crunch allowed it to hit Mega Gengar, and Hypnosis was kind of just there as a way to gamble a turn away to maybe make up for some lost ground in the match. Watchog itself is pretty weak, with not a single one of its stats being above 85. Its highest stat is its 85 attack stat, and it only has 77 speed, meaning that it's not only pretty slow, but it's frail and it doesn't hit very hard at all. Watchog brings to the table effectively nothing that a better Pokemon isn't also capable of. Even for the team that it saw success on, Kangaskhan is arguably the better pick, and this is overall due to the fact that it has access to Crunch, Low Kick, and Ice Punch with a higher 95 attack stat, only that the Kangaskhan would have to run Fake Out instead of Hypnosis. And I know that it loses Analytic, but it gains Scrappy, meaning that it can go for Fake Out into opposing Ghost types, and it can't be intimidated. And while it can't run Hypnosis, that move is already kind of a gamble and not really part of the overall flowchart of the team. Watchog really is just the most standard Route 1 normal type. It has good coverage moves, but practically nothing beyond that. It's the least notable of all the round 1 normal types, with it not having anything special to it, whether that be the Moody boosts on a Barrel or the Belly Drum set on a Linoon. It really just is a nothing Pokemon. This video is brought to you by the Moxie Boosted membership. By clicking the join button below, subscribing to me on Twitch, or joining my Patreon, you get access to my members only Discord server, where we not only host weekly tournaments and team build together, but you'll also get access to exclusive content like full-size renders of my thumbnail art that make for great wallpapers, and even exclusive video content. This week, my friend MJ and I opened up over 100 perfect order packs that they won from top baiting Indianapolis regionals as we attempt to complete my master set. But you can expect commentaries from stream sets of tournaments and even fun bonus tier list videos that nobody but members will have access to. You also see your name at the end of all of my edited long form videos, and if you just want to support me a little bit, you can go ahead and get your name at the end of all my videos for as little as $1 a month. Funds go towards me being able to pay for editing and releasing even better content, so if all that sounds interesting to you, be sure to join the Moxie Boosted members Discord server. Thanks again for watching, and now let's get back to the video. At number 4, we have Avalugg, which may come as a shock to many people as Avalugg on paper has some impressive stats, including its 95 HP, 117 attack, and a 184 defense stat, which is among the highest defense stats in the entirety of Pokemon. But its extremely low 46 special defense is just the first of many flaws that prevent Avalugg from having any competitive success. This game has no Assault Vest in it, meaning that Avalugg has practically no way to cover for its extremely frail special defense, save for setting up a light screen with a partner Sableye. But at that point, you're running two kind of niche Pokemon. While there aren't a ton of special attackers that are relevant in the current metagame, there are three that dominate it, and these are Mega Charizard Y, Sylveon, and Mega Floette Eternal, and they can all just absolutely annihilate an Avalugg. Sylveon's Hyper Voice, for example, is doing a minimum of 73% to a max HP Avalugg, and Floette's Dazzling Gleam is going to be doing similar damage while its Moonblast will just one-shot it. And let's not even get into Mega Charizard Y, because Mega Charizard Y's Heat Wave can KO this thing 2.5 times over. That's all despite the fact that spread moves have a built-in 25% reduction in power when they're hitting multiple targets, which in a double battle they're usually going to be doing. Beyond even all of that standing in the way of Avalugg being at all useful, the current metagame kind of revolves around Rock Slide. Practically every team has a Rock Slide user, whether it be an Aerodactyl, a Garchomp, Excadrill, Tyranitar, or even just some random Pokemon using a coverage move. This is all just to deal with opposing Mega Charizard Y, which is the single best Pokemon in the metagame right now. So Avalugg just kind of ends up catching a stray here, as Rock Slide is super effective against Avalugg due to its ice typing. So it's difficult for Avalugg to make full use of its incredible bulk when it's constantly being bombarded by super effective attacks. And that really kind of sucks for Avalugg because it's being attacked on both ends. Mega Charizard Y is the best Pokemon in the format, meaning you're going to be dealing with it in pretty much every tournament that you play it, so Avalugg has a bad matchup into that. But the Pokemon that are meant to deal with Mega Charizard Y, which are also common, are also strong against Avalugg. There really is no winning for it. Even if you try to opt for an offensive Trick Room Avalugg to try to get around these bad matchups and speed tiers, Avalugg just doesn't have the damage to justify that. 117 attack is fine, but it's just not hitting hard enough to pick up KOs fast enough to make the Trick Room worth it. A good comparison of this is Incineroar. Incineroar is a Pokemon with 115 attack. That is very similar to Avalugg's 117 attack, but Incineroar has much higher damaging moves in Flare Blitz, and that is not a Pokemon that we would consider a Trick Room sweeper. Avalugg might have some pretty good stats on the physical side of things, but it's just really not able to make up for its many flaws in Pokemon Champions. At number 3, we have Emolga. Now, Emolga is a Pokemon that already doesn't have very much going for it, especially since it lost access to Tailwind after Generation 7, which was basically just a death sentence for Emolga's viability, which was already sort of a fringe case. Like, it wasn't the most viable Pokemon to begin with, it was very niche. But losing this was not good for it. Emolga already doesn't have the best stats, with its only good stat being its 103 base speed, allowing it to outrun anything as fast as Garchomp or slower, which is most Pokemon. Most Pokemon are going to fall below that 103 speed tier. And this is great when it has Tailwind, because this speed tier combined with Tailwind and its electric move immunity due to Motor Drive could allow for it to be a solid speed control Pokemon. It even has access to Electro Web, Encore, Rain Dance, and plenty of other great support moves, but not having Tailwind means that most of that just kind of goes out the window. In the face of an opposing Tailwind user like an Aerodactyl, Whimsicott, or Talonflame, Emolga becomes more or less useless. This is because its only good moveset becomes really ineffective when it can't move first. If Emolga isn't moving first, it can't Encore lock Pokemon into Protect or setup moves, and its support moveset gets heavily nerfed without Tailwind. Without that, what is Emolga really left with? It's certainly not its offenses. It's only got 75 in either one of those attack stats. Emolga ends up somehow just a worse Rotom Fan, which is already considered kind of a joke of a Pokemon, as Rotom Fan at least has decent bulk and access to Nasty Plot. You can make the argument that maybe Emolga's niche is that it is an electric type that can fly next to a Garchomp, but Rotom Fan is also that, and Rotom Fan has better damage output. You can't even make the argument that Emolga is a counter to these Tailwind users, as these Tailwind users include Aerodactyl, which will basically always beat the Emolga. Your Thunderbolt is not doing nearly enough to a Pokemon that is faster than you and can also hit you with Rock Slide. You know how dinosaurs evolved to become like chickens or something? Well, I'd like to imagine that Emolga is the chicken to Zapdos's T-Rex. How does one even get worse than Emolga? How does a Pokemon be less viable than that? To be honest, I'm not sure, but Galarian Stunfisk manages to do it somehow. Galarian Stunfisk is a Pokemon with solid bulk in its 109 HP, 99 defense, and 84 special defense, and well, that's about it. Steel Ground is obviously a very good typing, as we've seen it succeed in the case of Excadrill, but this Pokemon asks the question, what if we flattened out an Excadrill and took away all of its steel moves? Yes, literally all of the steel moves. Galarian Stunfisk may not have the greatest of offenses, but its best attacking stat is still its 81 base physical attack, which does allow for it mediocre power on its Earthquakes and Stomping Tantrums. But it's never truly had any good forms of steel damage, which is arguably the more coveted damage type when you're competing with other ground types. You'd rather be a ground type that beats fairies. And this is because the only steel move that Galarian Stunfisk learned up until Pokemon Champions was Metal Claw, a 50 base power steel move with a 10% chance to raise the user's attack stat. For reference, that is the move that Charmander learns before you fight Brock in Pokemon Fire Red. That is a move meant to deal with an Onix, a Pokemon that is also not very good. It is literally baby's first steel type move. But they even took away Metal Claw in Pokemon Champions from Galarian Stunfisk. And why? Because they finally made its signature move Snap Trap a steel type move instead of a grass type move. This means that while the move does make more sense now, as a Bear Trap, Snap Trap should deal steel type damage, Galarian Stunfisk's best physical steel move is now a 35 base power attack that deals damage over time. Who said that this was okay? Why is the Bear Trap Pokemon being treated as a joke? It's a Bear Trap. That's like the top 10 coolest things ever. There's not many other Pokemon that I can imagine being on Wile E. Coyote's team, but this guy is one of them, and it's being treated like a joke. Galarian Stunfisk not only has no good offensive tools, but its ability went from practically useless in Generation 8 to genuinely useless in Pokemon Champions, as Mimicry causes Galarian Stunfisk to change its typing with whatever terrain is active on the field, and with no automatic terrain setters like Rillaboom, Tapu Fini, or Pincurchin around, this means that Mimicry will basically never activate without you manually doing it. Galarian Stunfisk never had many good movesets, but one of the few things it could boast before was the fact that its Terrain Pulse would always have Stab on it. That was kind of a cool niche for it, even if it didn't deal that much damage, because it has a pretty low special attack stat. But now it's never really going to happen. This Pokemon is just bad. The final Pokemon I have written up no notes for this recording, because I don't need any notes to tell you why Castform is a bad Pokemon. I want you to picture this. We're going to play a little game here. I want you to picture this Pokemon in your mind. It is a normal type Pokemon, but it has access to Blizzard, Hurricane, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, whatever coverage you could ever imagine. And whatever weather is active, it will become that type. Absolute cinema. Can you imagine that Pokemon? It has 70 base stats across the board. Huh? Do you remember the Hoenn special discussion where we're like, oh, it's kind of weird that like every Hoenn Pokemon has equal attack and special attack, because they just really didn't know which way to go with that, since the special split was going to happen soon anyways. Well, Castform is kind of like if they didn't know what to do with any of the stats, so they made them equal across the board, and they were all bad. Spinda is a Pokemon with 60 base stats across the board, but even Spinda manages to make up for it because Spinda has like Fake Out and all these different support tools, and you can make use of a Spinda. There is practically no use for a Castform, because no matter how you try to run that Castform, its damage, speed, support, anything it does is going to be underwhelming. A good support Pokemon should be either fast or bulky, so it can click like Icy Wind and Helping Hand and all that. Castform does have access to some of these tools. Castform has access to Icy Wind for speed control. In previous generations, it even had access to Tailwind, but in those generations, it still couldn't manage to make use of it. It doesn't have Tailwind right now, it's really just Icy Wind, but Castform, with this Icy Wind speed control, if you want to play it with like Icy Wind and some weather setting move to support a team, is not going to be fast enough to make full use of that, nor will it be bulky enough to be able to sit on the field and click the move. It is not a Sableye, it is not a Grimmsnarl, it isn't even like an Electabuzz. It's not able to do whatever any of those Pokemon do on the support side of things because of its stats. Now, offensively, this is a Pokemon that will always get Stab on the weather move it's using in that weather, basically. It can turn into a water type and get Stab on Weather Ball and have the Rain boost as well. It will always have Stab on Weather Ball, but off of 70 special attack and no choice specs in the game, and no Life Orb in the game, and no reason to even want to boost this thing's damage because it's not one-shotting anything ever. Castform is not able to deal enough damage to be worth running as an offensive Pokemon. Castform is basically a gimmick Pokemon without a gimmick. If its gimmick isn't able to be used consistently game to game, it's not worth running on your team. And when a gimmick goes out the window, it has nothing. Castform is just bad. I want you to just think about it. Whoever can build me the best Castform team, we'll make this a challenge, actually. End of the week, everyone in my Discord, if you're like a Patreon or whatever, if you guys have access to that, submit to me your best Castform team for Pokemon Champions, and I will use them all at the end of this week on Saturday. I think that will be the team showcase. It should be fun, but Castform is the worst Pokemon in Pokemon Champions, and it isn't even close. You can make the argument that Ditto is the worst Pokemon because it has worse stats and is a normal type, but Ditto isn't even a Ditto most of the time. It's going to turn into a different Pokemon. Castform's just bad. There's no reason to run it. Anyways, that's my top 5. These are the worst Pokemon in Pokemon Champions. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications. Like I said, if you want access to my Discord, you can become a YouTube member by clicking the join button below or checking out my Patreon. By joining the $5 tier, you get access to that, or you can just join the $1 tier and get your name at the end of all my videos. If you want to support me further, you can check out the playlist on screen right now, or check out my live streams whenever I go live. I haven't been super consistent recently, but I'll try to be consistent soon. But yeah, with that, if you guys enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.